"Sir, she's too weak to beg," the little girl said. Then the lonely rancher looked into his barn. The wind was blowing gently across the wide fields of Texas where an old rancher named Thomas lived all alone. His life was simple. He woke up before the sun, fed his horses, checked his fences, and spent his evenings sitting on the porch staring at the empty road. Years ago, Thomas had lost his wife, and they had never been blessed with children. Loneliness had become his closest companion, though he rarely admitted it. His ranch was big, filled with acres of golden grass, but his heart often felt small and hollow. One cold afternoon, as Thomas was carrying a bucket of water to the barn, he noticed movement near his gate. At first, he thought it was just a wandering animal, but then he saw the tiny figure of a girl no more than 9 or 10 years old. She had messy hair, a torn dress, and eyes that looked both scared and determined. Beside her was a bundle of cloth that she seemed to guard like a treasure. Thomas frowned and walked closer, wondering what a child was doing so far out in the countryside all alone. The girl lifted her face and spoke in a trembling voice. "Sir, please, can you help? She's too weak to beg anymore." Thomas stopped in his tracks. The words confused him. She pointed toward the bundle she carried. Slowly, she unwrapped it, and inside was a small, shivering puppy. The animal's ribs were showing, its fur was matted, and its little chest rose and fell in painful, shallow breaths. Thomas felt something stir inside his chest. The girl held the puppy close and whispered, "I tried to feed her scraps, but she won't eat. I don't have anyone else to ask." For a long moment, Thomas said nothing. He had never been a man of many words, but he had always had a soft spot for animals. "Come inside," he finally said. His voice was gruff, but not unkind. He opened the barn doors and motioned for the girl to follow. Inside, the smell of hay and horses filled the air. The girl placed the puppy gently on a blanket Thomas spread out on the ground. He checked the little creature, noticing how fragile it was. "Where did you find her?" he asked. The girl sat on a haystack, her hands clasped together tightly. "Behind the old store in town. People kicked her away because she was too sick. I tried to carry her home, but my stepfather said we don't need another mouth to feed. He said to throw her back on the street. But I couldn't." Her voice cracked, and her eyes filled with tears she tried hard not to let fall. Thomas stared at the child. She was thin too, with scraped knees and a face that spoke of hunger and neglect. He felt anger rising inside him, not at her, but at the cruel world that had forced someone so young to carry such heavy burdens. "Wait here," he said. He brought a bowl of warm milk and some bread. He gave the bread to the girl and set the milk in front of the puppy. Slowly, the little animal licked at the liquid, and for the first time in days, its tail gave a weak wag. The girl smiled through her tears, relief flooding her face. As the sun began to set, Thomas realized the girl had not moved to leave. He asked gently, "Do your parents know where you are?" She shook her head. "My mama died when I was little. My stepfather doesn't care. He drinks most nights. He won't look for me." Her voice was soft, almost as if she was ashamed to admit it. Thomas looked at her again, and his heart ached. She reminded him of the child he had never had, the daughter he and his wife used to dream about. For years, he had lived in silence, filling his barn with animals but never his home with laughter. And now, fate had brought this little girl and her weak puppy to his doorstep. That night, he let her sleep in the barn's loft where it was warm and safe. He gave her an old quilt that had once belonged to his wife. He listened as the wind whistled outside and thought of how different the place felt with the presence of a child and her tiny companion. In the following days, the girl returned again and again. Sometimes she came with nothing but empty hands. Sometimes she brought little scraps she had hidden from her stepfather's table for the puppy. Each time, Thomas fed them both. The puppy grew stronger, and so did the bond between Thomas and the girl. One afternoon, Thomas asked, "What's your name, child?" She hesitated before replying, "Lily." It suited her, he thought. Like a flower growing in a place no one expected, fragile but stubborn enough to survive. Weeks passed. The puppy, whom Lily named Star, began to run and play around the barn. The girl's cheeks slowly filled with color from the meals Thomas provided. Yet, she still returned each evening to her stepfather's house, no matter how cruel the man was. Thomas worried about her constantly. Then one stormy night, Lily came running to the ranch, soaking wet, holding Star in her arms. She was crying. "Sir, he hit me. He said if I don't get rid of Star, he'll kill her." Thomas felt fury burn in his veins. He had never raised a child, but every instinct told him no child deserved such fear. He took Lily inside, gave her dry clothes, and sat her by the fire. He looked at the small, trembling girl and knew he could not send her back. "You don't have to go back there," Thomas said quietly. "Not if you don't want to." Lily's eyes widened. "But, where would I go?" "Here," he said simply. "This ranch has been too quiet for too long. Maybe it's time it had a little noise again." The girl blinked, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Then, slowly, she smiled, a smile so bright that it seemed to chase away years of darkness from Thomas's heart. From that day forward, the ranch was never lonely again. Lily and Star brought laughter, warmth, and light to every corner of the old wooden house. Thomas taught her how to ride horses, how to plant seeds in the garden, and how to mend fences. In return, Lily taught him how to laugh again, how to hope again, and how to love like a father. When neighbors saw the change, they whispered in amazement. The old rancher who had once kept to himself now walked through town with a little girl's hand in his and a playful puppy at his heels. People asked questions, but Thomas never cared much for what they thought. All he knew was that his once empty barn had given him not just a reason to live, but a family he never expected. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, he would look at Lily and remember the first words she ever said to him. "Sir, she's too weak to beg." He realized then that neither the girl nor the puppy had been too weak. They had been strong enough to find him. And together, they had saved each other.